this healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Now thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. I want to say thank you. Thank you. I want to say thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I want to say thank you. Say thank you. 'Cause I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful. So grateful. So grateful. So grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. Just thank you. Thank you. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 'Cause I'm so grateful. Yeah. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I want to just say thank you now. Just thank you now. 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 Each and every day I'm gonna say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So this week, we're just continuing with our conversation about the Ho'oponopono prayer. Let me admit Kathleen. So as many of you know, and we talked about last week, Dr. Hugh Lin, who was a psychiatrist in a hospital in Hawaii, healed a lot of criminally insane individuals with this particular prayer. And the prayer is very simple. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And different people who use this prayer use it in a lot of different formulas. It's not always, sometimes it's I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I learned it, thank you for forgiving me. So this prayer, we watched a couple of episodes of an interview last week, and this week we will do the same, and we will end with some meditation time. And so Miss Carly decided she wanted to show up.
Well, good.
And so you get a little gratuitous cuteness
Uh-huh.
as a bonus.
Hi, Carly.
So I wanted to just begin with Rocio. You said you had done a little research since we met the other day. And what was it that you said you watched? And you were, let me unmute you real quick.
There was the together with what we watched together, there was another where another segment, another talk, I think it was a program in itself, that he's teaching how to talk to this child. And then he ends up with Ujjayi breathing, not so much Ujjayi, but the breathing in 7 and holding it, the kumbhak, after the 7 times, after the process of just holding the child's hand and starting with his head and just being very respectful to this child, that you want forgiveness. It's your own inner child. That's that was what he was teaching, kind of in a classroom with, you know, in a, like you would say, in a high school classroom or something.
So it was a child, but not a small child, a young adult?
No. The setting was not in chairs of an auditorium or something. It was just maybe, I don't know how many, but a few people just doing the exercise with him, and he has his eyes closed and he's leading them, you know, take a hold of your child or touch his head, her head, your head, or embrace this child and do the please forgive me, I love you, and I'm sorry.
So he was doing inner child work.
Yes.
Inner child, with your own inner child.
So I followed his meditation together with a group. It
Okay.
takes me forever to explain.
Oh, no, that's good. I think there are many applications. I mean, any of these phrases are very powerful. You know, anytime you say thank you, it's a powerful phrase in and of itself. We throw it out there, especially those of us who are raised to be polite. We kind of say, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. But when you don't hear thank you, it's really loud that you don't hear it. You know, I mean, it's the absence of that gratitude that sings loudly. And I think that any of these phrases, I'm sorry, is always a good phrase. If you grew up with a parent like I did, who didn't know that phrase, I'm sorry. And sometimes it was, you know, it was warranted. And you know, as a child, you're craving that, right? And it sounds like what you're describing is he was teaching someone to use it with inner child work. And inner child work is really important when we haven't been parented in a particular way. And sometimes that's exactly what we needed and we didn't get. So I think any of these phrases, if you use them, please forgive me, is a very powerful phrase. I mean, if you think about it, how many times do you ask someone, please forgive me? I misunderstood you, I misspoke, whatever someone else considers the offense. That's a really powerful phrase, because it's kind of like we were talking about that week that we discussed Passover, and we didn't really talk about the actual, you know, Last Supper Passover, but we talked about it on Sunday with the washing of the feet. It was a way for Jesus to humble himself to the people who he was teaching. And so, please forgive me is a way to humble yourself. I mean, people are so afraid of being wrong, right? I'm sorry, or please forgive me, are phrases people choke on because they're afraid that, oh, that makes me wrong.
The guilty.
Yeah.
The guilty party.
Yeah. So why are we so afraid to be wrong?
Yeah.
Really,
or
really
to take responsibility, you know, it's to take responsibility. See, I did that, I'm sorry, you know.
Yeah, and maybe it wasn't my intention for it to come out that way and to be harmful to you, but I still made that choice or made those words or, you know, created that situation. So
very important.
Yeah, all the phrase together, you know, what he used when he was literally praying, you know, over those files, was just that. It was what he calls a clearing. So would you want to watch some more of the interview that we started watching last week?
I'm a yes.
Are we good with that? Hetty, Mark? I think,
David?
Dave, I don't think you were here on last Wednesday, were you? Dave Russell, you were, I think. Kathleen, you were not. Well, I don't think you can pick up. It's only the third of a series of interviews, but I think they each stand alone. He's pretty simplistic in the way he describes what he's describing. So I'll switch over to sharing. Let's hope I don't have a complete meltdown like I did on Sunday when I couldn't get back to wherever I thought I was going to go. We'll see if I can get us over to the video. Maybe I have to do something first. Just a minute. Talk amongst yourselves while I figure it out. Here we go. Let's see if I can now. I'll try to share. There it is.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what the cleaning process is like on an experiential level.
Well, again, you have data. Data I may experience the data as I don't like you. Okay, let's say that data says in my mind I'm going, oh my God, and I have to put up with this bullshit stuff.
Right.
Blah, blah, and I go, oh, I get to clean with that.
Right.
What's going on in me?
Right.
And I didn't know I had it.
Right.
So I can say to that data in me, I love you. Thank you for giving me one more chance to let you go so that I can be free. Right. So the Ho'oponopono is about saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And then the I'm sorry, please forgive me can be said a different way. I love you, thank you, blueberries, M&M's, the whole kit and caboodle. Yeah. The notion is that it's my responsibility. Totally. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're talking to not the person, but to
I'm talking to myself.
Yourself.
Yeah. Specifically, I'm talking to this inner child in me who is suffering because I'm holding on. So the Ho'oponopono is, you're asking questions, but it's an engagement process. Like you say, you're trying to wrap yourself around it. The Ho'oponopono is about letting go.
Right.
It's just let go, boom, the data goes, and all of a sudden you get inspiration to do something it never came out for you to do.
Right.
Yeah.
In the introduction to Zero Limits, Joe Vitale talks about programs that go back to the beginning of existence.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little more about that?
Yeah. When coming back again to Shakespeare, and when we were initially created at the beginning, we were nothing. Blank, no data, perfect in every way. Didn't have to think, didn't have to make money, didn't have to do any of this sort of stuff. So no data playing. And then out of that no data, which is what Buddha called void, up comes this, what Buddha called enlightenment, which is the source of the light. And then that source of the light decided, and I don't know why and how come, and I'm not interested, decided to create each one of us, and created each one of us infinitely zero. So that's how we began. And so what does it mean to be infinitely zero? It means we experience heaven on earth, nirvana, art, beauty, love, until something came along, and it brought darkness.
Are you in that state of bliss, nirvana?
If I was in that state, I would not be here sitting with you guys. I'm here because I have to let go.
But clearly you've had a considerable degree of success based upon your having emptied a psychiatric hospital.
I don't know what that means, success.
Assisted in a healing for people.
No, I didn't assist. I only took care of me. I'm responsible. I wasn't interested in them. They just came along in my life and said, hello, you got stuff you should let go. I said, oh, okay. So I didn't do it for them.
They're just mirrors then to yourself?
More importantly, more specifically, more precisely, that we had shared memories.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So this notion about healing people is bullshit stuff. I didn't do that. I'm only here to clean up what was going on in me that kept him goofy, that kept him stuck in the hospital. That's what I came. I came along to do that, to do it on me, not them. And if they benefit, okay, but that wasn't my orientation. That wasn't my focus. My focus was to be free. Yeah.
So anyone who comes in front of you in any way
Or before.
you
Yeah.
have relationship with that person
You
on
have
some level.
shared data.
And do you feel a sense of compassion towards the people that
You're funny. What does that mean, compassion?
a heartfelt connection?
You want me to be deadly honest with you?
Yes, please.
It's bullshit stuff. It's like when you're free at zero, you have nothing. You're free. You're not even in love. You're not having any of this stuff you hear, the garbage that you hear. You're nothing. That's what Jesus said. Jesus said, listen, seek ye first the kingdom, which is nothingness, and you shall see God. That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in seeing the God in you guys.
Okay.
I'm not interested in. So if I see the God in you, then I'm okay. I'm fine. See, it's the data. If I can let go of the data, which is the mortgage on my soul, I get back to zero. Then I'm going to see what Jesus said. I'm going to see God.
And nothing but.
Yeah, nothing but. And because you guys were already perfect, it was the imperfection of the data in me, not in you. So this notion about saving or clearing out the hospital is funny. The whole universe laughs. The universe is not interested in saving anybody. The universe is interested in one being 100% responsible. Then the universe will sing, hallelujah.
So, but did that event happen then? That was
I'm sorry?
The event that's described in the book about you working in the psychiatric hospital.
What about it?
Did it happen?
What happened?
Did it so happen that you did cleaning on yourself, and that those people were healed and moved on?
Let me be really more precise. It's very important to be precise. When I showed up at the hospital, it isn't a job I wanted to do.
Right.
But I had a friend there who said, we need some help. And I said, well, I can do it. Just give me the names of the people. I can do it from wherever. I don't have to be there. Well, we can't do it because it's confidential. So I said, okay. And maybe after a year or two, I finally relinquished and went. And so when I showed up, all the seclusion rooms were used. And there were people, several people daily in restraint, physical, that sort of restraint. There was really verbal and physical violence on the ward. So I just did my cleaning. What was going on in me that I'm experiencing, like the toilets flushing with nobody on them, the shower turning on with nobody, And so I just began the cleaning, and months later, without making an effort, the seclusion rooms went. Nobody ended up in the seclusion rooms. The violence stopped.
So I just want to check in. Do you want to keep watching the next video, or we want to have some conversation about this one?
I could make a comment on that. What I heard him saying was it was all about the attachment that you put on things. And he was saying that, the attachment is what makes that connection, and you want to release the attachment. And the interviewers are sitting there saying, "Oh, well, did you feel compassion for the people?" No, because that's an attachment. He was letting go of all attachment, even the attachment of feeling compassion for the people. It's more of a release, whereas anything else like compassion or love or hate, they're all attachments that you have with individuals.
That's a good translation into more of a Buddhist terminology, Mark. The attachment or non-attachment. He talked about the void. So I think that he was only talking about himself, right? Which is all we ever have any kind of control over is ourselves. Other comments? Everybody's line is open right now, except Mark. He muted himself after he spoke.
I missed the first installment. I'm kind of curious. He's so self-effacing, which I really appreciate and approve of. How did he become famous? Was it because of the work he did at this hospital that
Yes.
people noticed? And because I mean, he certainly wasn't promoting himself. I can see
No.
that.
And he still doesn't.
So that was what it was. Somebody noticed what was going on at the psychiatric hospital.
He said a friend asked him, "Please help because we are helpless." And so after a while, he decided to help. And the only way he knew how to help was by clearing himself. Because if we, as a soul, that's the way I understand it, as a soul, we bring whatever we have lived before, we bring to this world, and that's our baggage. But our baggage can be horrible things that we've done in other lifetimes. I mean, horrible things. Once he heals these, us being all one, the souls get healed. If you meditate, there's going to be that connection, that ripple effect that's going to, not only you had a great meditation, but it spread in the house, in the town, in the world. It made a difference. It made a...
Yes, Rocio, you're right. So when we clear ourselves of judgment of others, expectation of others, any attachment, as Mark said, to others, then we free them to become whatever they're meant to be. And that's what he did. That's what he was asked to do, to come and, well, he wanted to do it remotely, as he intimated in that conversation. It's like, yeah, I don't need to be there. And they said, well, legally, because it was a psychiatric hospital, it's a state hospital in Hawaii, they needed him to come and be there. And when he did, he didn't actually go see the patients. He stood over the files and he did his clearing of whatever that story was about all those patients.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, it works. Kathleen?
I just thought it was very dramatic and very stark when he said, I didn't do this for them. We tend to think people are out doing all this stuff so they can take care of others. I'm speaking as a teacher, concerned about my students. The end of the semester, a couple have dropped off. And that was just such a great reminder, hearing him say, as a psychiatrist, compassion, he said, I don't even address that. I'm not doing it for them. And you just, your automatic response is, what?
Yeah.
He said, no, I'm doing it for me. And then, of course, he goes into the deeper piece, which probably all of us in this room know, and that is, if you're willing to see everything as a mirror, then he looked at himself through them and cleared, and that created a space for whatever needed to happen. And I thought that was a really great reminder for me, because right now I'm getting caught up with what can I do for them. And I've got a couple of weeks with some pretty upset students. So I just stumbled on here tonight and imagine I heard the very exact thing
Yeah, that is
that's
how love works.
for somebody in, whether you're a preacher or a teacher or a healthcare worker, to say the words, I'm not doing it for them.
Yeah.
I mean, you stop and think about how deeply that goes and what that can mean. That's anyway, that's something to throw out there.
Well, because if you're doing it for someone else, then you're attached to their outcome.
Yeah.
And their outcome is their own. You can't control that.
And he wasn't, yeah, he wasn't doing that for them. No not just attachment, but just clearing himself. Yeah.
Yeah, and we all have that collective consciousness. We have race consciousness that affects our motivations and our expectations and our worldview. And, you know, we're always projecting that and we're always engaged with it. And the more we can just simply say, it's only about me. How do I feel in this moment? And how can I get myself, he says zero, back to zero, back to non-attachment, back to the void, back to what I call just that alignment, you know, just that calm, that knowing, where from there I can move forward. And he said, then you get your guidance. Then you know when you get your guidance, that's what is to follow. The same guidance that you stumbled in tonight, you know, just by like, okay, I'm bored, I'll see what's going on with this. Who cares? Whatever, I'll spend some time.
No,
So,
not on board.
Well, yeah, no, you're not bored. No,
Never my words.
no. But for whatever reason, I think
Yeah.
I'm glad that you came and I'm glad that you heard that. So, anyone else?
Well, I'm
Eddie?
still a little bit unclear, and I don't know if he covered this in the first module or not, but so now I understand from what you guys have said that he was standing over the files of the patients, and would he then read some of the information about the patients and then have his
No.
own internal feelings that he
No.
then would work on? How was it that these thoughts of his own were arising?
No, he did not look at the files. So he was trained in a mystic tradition in Hawaii in this prayer of Ho'oponopono. So he was not, he said, it's not about them, right? It's about why am I here? Why was I drawn to this moment in this time with these people, with these issues? So he said, it's all about me. I'm here in this connection with these patients. So how can I clear myself? He didn't make it about the patient.
No, I understand that part, but my question is, how did he have, what were his impressions that he needed to clear himself? Were those things he brought to the meeting? I mean, he said he was working on himself, I get that. But how did these thoughts and impressions arise in him for him then to address? Were they things that just, I mean, he just was inspired by the feelings? Where did they come from?
So they came from that, which is alive in me and alive in you and alive in everyone. It's prana, chi, divine source, inspiration, whatever name you call it. So what he would do is clear himself. If he would feel something, if you remember he was commenting about when I would, like, he would notice that he would have a judgment about, even in that moment, he had a little judgment about her using the word compassion. It's like, he probably had to go and clear after that interview on laughing at her using the word compassion. Because all that subtlety of our expectations and projections on one another is what separates us. It keeps us in that mode of separation when we're not separate, we are one. I'm a reflection of you, you're a reflection of me. We're all, so if there's that moment of where I'm feeling uncomfortable, then that's not about you, it's about me. And if I clear me, then you're free. Does that answer? No?
It does for me.
Yes
I mean,
Okay, Dave, come back. Come on, bring it.
No, it's the same question. You know, I understand I understand what you were just discussing. I'm just wondering what his inspiration was as he began to do his own internal work. Was this something that he had to have received impressions in some way, whether he just cleared his mind and let the impressions come and then worked on his own work internally himself? I'm just wondering if there was some trigger, or that's not a good word for it, but if there was some inspiration of some kind that caused the thoughts or impressions that he had that he then worked upon himself. Was he just inspired? I mean, did he just clear his mind and had these impressions come to him, and then that was what he worked on?
So basically, that's about what he, just one second, Rocio, I want you to contribute. But that is about what he's saying. It wasn't ever about the specific patient or what their challenge was. It was about how he was feeling about the patient, or what was coming up in him is what he needed to clear. He did not need
that's what I was wondering. So he was somehow getting an impression about these patients.
No,
he wasn't looking
it was not an impression about the individual patients. It was about what was it bringing up in him to be present with the patient's needs. It was never about the patients. Rocio, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So basically he asked for, he maybe didn't formally ask for guidance, but basically he opened the channel to impressions to come to him that he then was able to work on, that was therapeutic for these patients. Is that the idea?
So when you do the cleaning, as he calls it, when you do the cleaning, then you are an open channel or whatever.
Right.
You know, you are not blocked by perceptions and judgments and expectations. Right. So the cleaning is a way to polish the mirror. Rocio?
I agree with you. You put it very, very well, because when you open your channel, when you come back to where you first born, when you are totally clear, you have no imprints, no sensations, no nothing. You are pure. So that's, if he comes to that point, wherever it is going on, it's just the channel of divine intervention. He doesn't want to call it clearing. I don't know, but it's the God that works, not him. And it's not about him or the other. It's just about being a channel for that energy that comes to him.
It's the absolute, and the absolute is present. Absolute is present in all of us, all the time, 100%. It's our own thoughts and judgments and perceptions and evaluations and assessments. That is what gets murky. So when he talks about clearing, it's clearing that anything that feels out of harmony. When you clear it, then you can hear. Sylvia, did you have a comment?
Yes, I guess I'm following up on Dave's question. What was it about this stack of client files or him being there that triggered, because obviously this isn't the first time he's been clear.
No, he clears constantly. In the earlier interviews, he cleared before he went to this interview.
Right. I mean, I would think this is not the first time he's done it. So what was the trigger? Is it the energetic contents of the files, or
no, it's his feeling about it.
There's a missing piece.
There's a big disconnect here.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect here. You're in one circle and I'm in a different one.
Okay, let's find a Venn diagram. Somewhere there's a Venn diagram that overlaps.
That's where we need to be, is that point right there.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm asking, I guess.
Yes.
So, you know, as she was saying, he does this. I mean, his centering is something he does as part of his daily life regularly, I gather.
All
So
day, I'm sure.
he's asked to go help us. Are we still together? Something just
Yes.
happened.
Yes, that was just,
Okay, I just lost
Yeah.
your image. There you are.
You clear yourself out.
He came into this office. There was a stack of files, and he cleared himself, and that solved the problem. Is that what you're saying?
well, I think he said it was
It's not
over a
about
period of
the-
time, right? It was over a period of time. It wasn't like he just did it and it was done. Mandy, Russell, do you have a comment?
Yes, like I hear people saying, what impression did he get, or how did he know what to pray for? He didn't need to know anything. He was just, you know, purely there. He didn't have to know one thing about the patient. Didn't have to know their names, because he just was putting out that healing energy, but it wasn't specifically to them. Sorry,
Was
I know
it-
that doesn't make no
Right.
sense.
Yeah, no.
I
it does
understand
make-
that.
Yeah, it wasn't specific because he wasn't looking at them at all. He was looking at himself. And I think that as human beings, we're conditioned to look outside of ourselves for approval, for something to fix, for the problem, for blame. We're always looking outside of ourselves. And, you know, if we can just do the cleaning, as he calls it, clear our buckets. One minister I knew in Unity of Dallas said he and his fifth wife came together successfully and were married 27 years after multiple marriages for both of them, because they finally cleaned their buckets, as he called it. So he got rid of all that carryover and that residue and those expectations and judgments and just showed up. And that's what he's talking about when he says he's doing a cleaning all the time. But in the earlier 2 or 3 interviews that we looked at, he said, I cleaned on your address. So he checked in with himself about the location of this interview. And when he got a clear feeling about it, he decided to take the interview. Then he checked in on the names of the people who were going to interview him. And he waited until he got a cleaned, as he says, until he got to the point where it felt good to him to do it. So the cleaning part is about the individual person and not about the files or the students, as Kathleen was saying, or anybody else. It's about ourselves and how are we looking. Yes,
And
Sylvia.
from what I remember reading about this before, and this was a long time ago, so I don't remember the details, but it was over a long period of time. I mean, he never saw the patient, but he was there at the hospital for months, if not a year.
Yeah, he didn't
That's
just go
Correct,
in.
or
Yeah, he didn't just walk in and whoop, they're all done.
Okay, well, that clears a lot of my question up.
Yeah.
So this
Right.
was something he was reapplying himself to over and over a period of time as he got impressions and did his own personal work.
And he still does it. He's still, it's a
he's still at the hospital?
No, it closed. It actually closed.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, we're talking about 2 different things, I think.
Yeah,
And what he does on his own versus what he did at this hospital.
No, that's the same thing. It's the same thing. What he does every day, because he was trained in this technique, is
Right.
what he applied when he went to the hospital.
Right. Okay.
So we're all used to analyzing things and coming up with reasons why that happens. I think that the amazing thing here is not that he was able to clear himself, but that because of the clearing, everybody else was affected by it. Because of what he did, all of a sudden, all the patients became all right. And so far as the staff was concerned, the problems went away. That's the amazing part. But not that he had to go through the procedure process, except for clearing himself, feeding himself.
But
It's hard to get
if
your
you
mind around,
noticed,
I know.
he didn't say, I did it. He said, I just took care of myself. That's all I was interested in. I took care of myself. He doesn't take credit for the outcome.
So how did everybody else see a change? That's the question.
What was the question, Mark?
How did that change occur for everybody else? He cleared himself, and all of a sudden, the people were okay, and the staff no longer had issues with the patients. It's not what he did; it's what happened because of the process he went through, which was really doing nothing. Instead of doing something, he was actually able to get to a place where he did nothing.
He was doing everything. He wasn't doing nothing. He was doing everything. How many of us really clear our feelings every day, throughout the day, release our judgments, release our attachments, release our expectations all day long, just kind of free ourselves from that? When you free yourself, you free the other person. Remember on Monday when we were talking about forgiveness and how that energetic cord gets cut? When you actually truly do forgive, you release yourself from that attachment. That when you're doing that cleaning, you're letting go, you're untethering yourself from all sorts of layers of things. So it's not doing nothing at all, it's doing everything. It's doing everything within your own power, which is only ever about yourself. And Rocio mentioned earlier the ripple effect. So when you clear for yourself, that ripple effect.
Well,
The closest thing to is like when we were in church on Sunday and we did our meditation, and I always imagine just like ripples going out from all of us, and they just never stopped. They just went all through the universe. That's kind of what I picture he did, and that's something that you could use as a like parallel. What happens when we all sat and meditated? Did it change the world?
It does.
I believe it did.
It does. It's
okay,
called
so
constructive interference. It amplifies. The ripples meet and they amplify. It's constructive interference in quantum physics. Sylvia, you have something to say?
okay, it sounds to me, and what I have heard of it's almost like it's a prayer. I mean, if you have like oneness right now, we had 6,500 people meditating last weekend in order to change that vibration, the same thing the weekend before. Okay, are we doing nothing? Well, it seems like we're doing nothing because we're clearing.
But you're doing everything.
Well,
and it's measurable. It's measurable. The Heart Math Institute is literally measuring these things.
I get the impression that we're saying the same thing. I think we're saying it in different ways, and so we're kind of going around and around. We're trying to support what we're saying in the best way verbally possible, and we're going around and around. I think when people have said that he did nothing, he I mean, did he? Did the Creator? I mean, did he do it? Did he just open himself up to allow that to happen? Yes, no. I mean, it really is a question of how you want to take, what angle you want to take.
Well, what he kept saying last week. I think
we're saying the same thing.
What he kept saying last week Dave, was personal responsibility. My responsibility is right here.
Yeah.
That's everything.
Yeah.
That's everything. If you literally can take responsibility for this, and you get your vibe on, because I'm all about the vibe all the time. So if you get your vibe right, then you have done everything. You really have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's our work. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I absolutely believe it. No question. I just can't imagine how getting it together and clearing the house is going to clear the psychiatric hospital. But now that I understand that this was over a period of time, you know, I'd like to, I don't know. I just get the feeling that as self-effacing as he is, that he's not getting into a lot of detail because it's personal stuff too. I mean, really, when you're working with yourself, he wasn't on a pedestal looking for an opportunity to talk about how great he is. So the content of how he did it and how it happened, if that woman hadn't been willing to continue with clearing the question she was asking of him, we would probably come away from that knowing nothing, because he really wasn't volunteering an awful lot, which I understand. But, you know, I think there must be more to what he was doing, his own impressions, how he did the work himself internally.
Well, I think there's a big difference when you're raised in Hawaii in a culture where this is taught as a mystical practice, and it's just ingrained in you, and then others of us who've been taught other ways that are maybe not as effective, and we're trying to go, wait, how do we get there? And he's like, you just do it. You know, it becomes.
I think you hit on it there. I think the fact that this came from a mystical practice is that he's just not stepping up and talking about stuff that is nobody else's business if you're not involved in that. I mean, a lot of this.
But people ask me all the time, well, how can I tell someone? You can't tell someone about your mystical experience.
Right.
You can articulate it to the best of your ability, but what you really experience is your experience. And
right.
Everybody has to have
and there are
their
no
own.
words. Yeah, no, I understand. But he wasn't trying very hard to explain either.
No. No, because he's not interested. They're interested.
Right.
But
I'm with him. I get it.
Yeah.
Good for him. I'm all about it. He should carry on just the way he's doing it. But I think there's an awful lot that he's not volunteering about the mystical background and how he was taught. That's my point.
Yeah. Well, there are books. I mean, I don't know exactly what all it goes into. I actually have Zero Limits and some other books that Joe Vitelli's written with him. Hetty, do you have any thoughts? We're kind of coming to the end of our evening, and you haven't spoken up this evening.
It's difficult to, as you say, to express your feelings. He grew up in that culture, as you said, and so it wasn't that new, must not have that new to him. And because it was used all the time. The question is that I have, how did it happen to come to the hospital? That work, could he have done it from any other place, or did he have to be in a hospital?
Yeah, I don't think he had to physically be there, except that the Hawaii state said, you need to physically be here if we're going to pay you. They're going to be the boss man. Yeah, I think that remote healing is a very real thing. I mean, otherwise, why do we pray? Anybody?
Someone made the comment that they couldn't release the names. I think that's the only reason he went to the hospital, because they couldn't release the names to him because of confidentiality purposes. So he had to go to the hospital just to be in the presence, I guess, of restrictions with the legal system.
But he still wasn't interested. You know, he had to wait until he got the guidance. He had to keep doing his own cleaning until he got the guidance to go. Because it wasn't about the names or you know, that was their technicality, but.
So Beverly, you ask a question that opens up a whole nother realm, which why do we pray? I mean, my little old grandfather told me, you're not ever praying for other people. And he was in his 80s when I was in my 40s. So anyway, I can't remember. He's gone now. He's been gone a long time. But he said, prayer changes the one praying. And as a young person, because I knew my grandfather well when I was a teenager, I really absorbed that. And I would hear groups of people pray for this and pray for that. And these people would pray for rain, and these people would pray for that person to be healed. And I kept remembering my grandfather's words. And I somehow think they're attached to this Hawaiian man.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
Changes the one praying. And then I think, you know, just to be with his very, very stark words, I didn't do this for them.
Yeah.
And I think we can kind of wrestle with that, because there's nobody born and raised in this culture who hasn't heard the story that you're supposed to do things for other people.
Yeah.
For other people. And he just said, I didn't do this for them. So I'm just going to kind of sit with that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think he's really clear-minded. And I think your grandfather was much like my dad, who was just a natural mystic, you know, just understood.
Yeah.
I was with my mom when she was in the hospital a number of years ago, and there were a couple of ladies from her church, and my mom was sitting in the bed, you know, not saying anything, and these two ladies were talking to each other. And I wasn't really listening. And they said, don't you agree, Beverly? And I said, I'm sorry, I wasn't really listening to your conversation. And they said, well, we've been praying for this lady in the church, and we've been praying for her and praying for her and praying for her. And, you know, and now, you know, this and that and the other. And don't you think prayer works? And, you know, I guess they were praying to change her. And I said exactly what your grandfather said. I'm like, well, yeah, I believe prayer works, very much so. But my question is, did you change or did she? And they sat back and they were a little like, what? But, you know, you're praying for someone like that, you change. You think you're praying to change the other person, but you're never praying to change the other person. You're praying to change whatever it is within you that sees something in discord with that person. You know, you're really praying the fact that if you are sincerely praying for that person and not against that person, then you change yourself. So your grandfather was absolutely very wise. Beautiful. Your grandfather probably brought you here tonight just so you could remember him and have a little time with him.
Well, I'm going to be thinking about my students and thinking about me. So thank you.
So clean yourself, and your students will be fine.
Yeah.
That's, you know, because they have their own journey, right?
Yep.
Just as we all do. Well, we're 3 minutes before the hour, and I really appreciate everybody who showed up tonight and all the fun conversation. Any final comments? No time for a meditation.
I find, am I on?
Yes.
I find him very confusing. And the more y'all talk about him, the clearer I get about him. But he uses the term infinite zero, which just sends my little quantum brain into a tizzy. I do not understand infinite zero. But the more y'all talk about him, the better I understand him.
Good. That's why we're all here together. By sharing, we understand ourselves.
There's a link we can go.
Mandy?
Go ahead, Mandy.
I say, I bet you there's a link and we could watch the first two if we miss it last time.
Yeah,
maybe
I'll
you
send.
could give us a little better.
Yeah, I can send it to you. It's on YouTube, but I'll send it to you so you can watch.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, namaste, everyone. Thank you, and thank you for being here. And just by the way, Dave pointed out to me, we had talked last week about moving to 4 o'clock, and then Mandy didn't remember that. Mandy Scott didn't remember that when she sent out the message today. So we're really meant to move back. It seemed to work out. We didn't have as much interference this week as we have in the past, but we'll move forward with 4 o'clock starting next week. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Have a beautiful
Okay.
evening. I love
Thank
you.
Beverly.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.